looking forward to this story.
Hi, Sharyn.
Hi, Alice.
How you doing?
Bienvenue. She just got back from France.
Ah, bien.
I came back knowing as little as I knew about French before I left.
Oh, well, I majored in French and Spanish literature, but I'm going to have to do a lot of reviewing. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
Stephanie.
Okay.
Hello, good to see you, Alice. How are you doing? Hello, Candace.
Good.
Wow. Hello, everybody. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, everyone.
Love the book.
It
I
looks
have
like
to
we
tell
all
you,
know each other.
Yeah, Sharyn, I was at a meeting last night at an art gallery, and I met this lady who's on the Board of Governors at the Washington Athletic Club. And we were talking, she said she was looking and she was picking up a book called Dancing with Langston. I said, oh, I can recommend it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I thought so. Mm-hmm.
Sure, that was my novel. It came out
Oh,
a couple
okay.
of years ago.
Oh, okay. Okay, congrats.
Debut novel.
Yeah.
I'm not calling it that anymore.
Good.
It's my novel. Until I do the next one.
When did it come out? How,
About 4 years ago, I guess. Something
and
like
when's your next one coming out?
when I finish writing it.
I know, I understand that.
No, I've been working on short stories. But Chun, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Are you all from Seattle area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, more or less. Alice is from New York. She's on Long Island.
I see. Okay.
I'm originally from the New York area, from New York, but I live near to where you are. I lived in the Boston area and Connecticut.
I see.
And my son lives in Rhode Island.
Oh, is that right? Where
My
in
son
Rhode
and his
Island?
family are in Rhode Island, where you are, right? You're there now?
Providence.
He moves. Why am I going blank? What's No, he moved to another town. He's got 3 little babies now, so he needed a bigger space.
I see.
Wow, I have to look that up. Where's my son? No, because he moved and I constantly get the addresses mixed up. I think he's in oh, I know.
Do you want me to text Chuck or call him?
You can. I know that he knows to be here.
Oh, okay.
And I see Tamarah is here. That's good.
Tamarah's on another island, maybe. Or
Yes. We're all in the area of, well, most of us are in the area of Seattle. But Tamarah, oh, there's Chuck. Tamarah, you're on Bainbridge, right?
I'm on Bainbridge Island. So yeah, we're like 40 minutes away from Seattle. And it's very nice. It's quiet and we don't have a lot of solicitors to our house. So it's pleasant. It's all in the woods. So it's hardly Rhode Island at all.
What's the weather like there?
Oh, cold and rainy.
Colder and yeah, you're wearing more more like spring clothing. Well, here is 80 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think it's 80 degrees here.
It's yeah, definitely.
Wow. Yeah. It's quite warm today.
I think I see Madeline.
Yep, she just got here.
And I know I see Chuck, Charles Johnson. Chuck. He's also in the book.
Oh.
And Ava, who is doing something.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I Chun, right? Chun,
Yes.
你好。
你好。
Where are you? Rhode Island?
Chun. Yeah, Rhode Island, Providence.
Ah, nice.
Is the theater still going, Provincetown Playhouse?
I think so. Yeah, have you been there?
No, but it's a very famous historical one,
Mm.
theater world.
Yeah.
Oh.
Stephanie is an actress, or an actor, excuse me.
I see.
Now, I was an actress before, before I went to Belgium, and I came back and the term was actor, so,
Yes.
yeah, being politically correct, I guess, is actor.
Well, it's just more reasonable. We don't call people generally directress or authoress.
That's true.
It's just easier and more efficient. And politically correct. You're right.
That's right.
Okay, why don't we get started? I think that Meredith is away. Is that true?
I
Yes.
think so, yes.
Yeah, okay. So we should get started because there's a lot to talk about you and your story. I think it's really great. Are you teaching now just to?
Oh, it just finished.
Oh, you finished. Okay, so you don't have any time constraints right
Good.
now. Okay. Okay, I just want to point out, Chun or Ye Chun, you have to help me pronounce that correctly.
Sounds really good.
Okay. Thanks, Ava. Okay. Ye Chun is a bilingual Chinese-American writer and literary translator. Her novel, Straw Dogs of the Universe, was longlisted for the 2024 Andrew Carnegie Medal of Excellence in Fiction and was named a Washington Post Notable Work of Fiction of 2023. Her collection of stories, How, was a LitHub's Best Book of 2021. New York Public Library's Best Book of 2021 and Electric Lit's Favorite Short Story Collection of 2021, and was longlisted for the 2022 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Fiction. She's also the author of 2 books of poetry, Travel Over the Water and Lantern Puzzle, a novel in Chinese, which the title translated into English is Peachtree in the Sea, and 4 volumes of translations. A recipient of the NEA Fellowship, a Sustainable Arts Foundation Award, and 3 Pushcart Prizes. She is an associate professor at Providence College and lives in Providence, Rhode Island. So, Chun, maybe you would like to tell us something about your work or your story?
Okay, be happy to. Thank you everyone for coming to this event, and thank you Sharyn to organize this event. So I'll say a few things about the story. So it's Anchor Baby is a story about the encounter and confrontation between a Chinese woman and an American man on the term Anchor Baby. So the Chinese woman is a mistress of a wealthy businessman, and she comes to this country to give birth with the hope that the baby would be born a US citizen. And the man is rather than a child born out of wedlock in China. And the man who's a neighbor, and he suffers from PTSD and war trauma. And he confronts this woman by insisting that she admits, the baby she's carrying is an anchor baby. And the term anchor baby is used to refer to a baby born of non-citizen parents in countries with the birthright citizenship. So it was first used in the late 90s and became popularized during the last couple decades. And it's mostly considered to be a derogatory term. So in the story, I use the term as a title. I also just, bring up the term right away in the story at the very beginning of the story. So the man asks the woman if she heard of the term before. So it's a kind of front-loading opening. So there's no beating around the bush. The woman is right away being put on the spot in a moment of crisis. Would you like me to write a short excerpt?
Yes, if you'd like.
Okay, yes. So just give you a sense of the story in case you haven't read it. Why, she says, why do you ask me about this? He ignores her question, holding up his cell phone for her to see. This is what anchor means. Take a look. She reads the first definition. Anchor, noun. One, when any of various devices dropped by a chain, cable, or rope to the bottom of a body of water for preventing or restricting the motion of a vessel or other floating object, typically having broad, hook-like arms that bury themselves in the bottoms to provide a firm hold. Her daughter, who grows bigger in her belly every day, does not have broad hook-like arms. On the sonogram, they look rather short and thin, more like fish fins that help her float, than metal arms that provide a firm hold. Why? She asks again. Why do you ask? Isn't the baby you're carrying going to be an anchor baby? No offense, but am I wrong? If her baby, who is due in 14 days, is an anchor, then she's a boat. She does feel like a boat with full-winded sails sometimes, ample, unmoored, navigating unknown waters. Why did she decide to sail all the way and drop her anchor here? To give her child the best. But now America is this real place, just like Lolly, who used to stand for something: maturity, wealth, confidence, success. All the things that she did not have herself. In the end, was revealed to be this real aged person with large pores and a quick temper. The man sitting in front of her was also an idea before, a well-mannered gentleman who helped her with groceries and told her she'd forgotten her key, but has now suddenly turned real sinister. So I'll stop here. So from this point on, the tension continues to build up to the climax, and the woman is in labor. She has to give birth to her child in the bathroom. And as the man, listens to her pain outside of the bathroom, and he starts to remember his relationship with his own mother. And as the labor goes on, he starts to imagine his own birth and actually imagine and relive his own birth. And this is where the divide sort of breaks down. And so their social programming, social conditioning sort of stripped away in this very elemental moment. They just become two human beings. And so at this point, the man can no longer think of the man just as an idea and at the baby just as a term. He's able to relate to them in a more authentic way. And at the same time, the woman also must trust her body and also trust her own authentic self. So yeah, this is my introduction, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you all. If you have any questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear that.
a lot of them. Okay. Okay. First of all, with anchor, you're using a lot of definitions here and extensions of them. For instance, just in that passage you read, you have a lot of water. You have a boat, you have the water in her body, you have, and the anchor, of course, and she's thinking of herself as a boat. All of these water-related images, which is quite nice. That's one thing. The other thing is you have two characters who don't have names. And I'm wondering if you have some reason for that.
Yeah, I think mostly in this story, because really just these two characters, he and she, right? So there's no pronoun confusion. So just he and she. Even though, you know, I was not thinking of having them represent some kind of universal humanity by not giving them a particular name, but I was thinking they are particular enough. They're particular characters. But here there is a sense of when men versus women, there's a sense of divide that's been already presented there, but then somehow they're able to bridge that divide eventually. Yeah, I just feel like it doesn't seem to be necessary to give them names, but which does not mean that they're not particular individual characters.
Well, they certainly are. I certainly have a feeling of who they are. And in that, I have to say, I was a little bit curious as to whose story this is, because the one who actually changes seems to be the man. The woman is going through natural physical thing. The baby's going to come out. And there's nothing she can do about it. It's just going to come out. But when we see that last scene, we see him change. So I'm just curious, do you see either of these characters as having, which one is there a main character?
I would say both, like equally. They're the main characters, and yeah, the man probably changes in a more fundamental way because, and he is also the initiator of the conflict, right? So then he definitely changes in a more tangible way. For the woman, I would say there's also change, maybe more subtly, besides this natural process of giving birth. Emotionally, she recognizes things that she has previously been unaware of. Even that in that excerpt I read, she seems to recognize this gap between the real and the idea, the reality and the idea. She talked about now American is a real idea. And then she sees like the difference between her idea of Lolly, who's the businessman, and the child's father, and her idea, the difference between her idea of this man and the reality, right? So there's that kind of recognition. That's something I was interested in exploring, this distance between what's real and what's conceived. How the kind of stories we tell ourselves, right? And the kind of conceptions we hold, and how they shape our reality in pretty substantial manner. And I was interested also in where those conceptions come from, how they're shaped, how they're shaped by our social programming. This woman, her conception, her idea about being a mistress, is really a sense of wanting to better her life, to this business, being a mistress to this businessman is to better her life. And then, coming here to have a baby is further better her life, right? And her baby's children's life. So there is this programming, this social programming, this idea that this privilege in wealth and in US citizenship. And there is also this widely propagated American ideal of equality, equal opportunities, and wealth. And the woman wants to believe in those ideals and want her children become some kind of embodiment of those ideals. But once she's here, especially through this encounter with this man, she recognized there's a big difference between, what's imagined, what's conceived, and the reality. So in that way, I think the woman does change in this story. But that's a really good question. I have not thought about that before.
You brought up so many things here. I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned the social constructs that these people came out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should describe a little bit about what the woman came from first.
Mm-hmm.
Because the man, we see him developing over time, but the woman is coming here knowing she's having a daughter, and that seems to be an issue. Can you say something about that?
Mm-hmm. So she doesn't know she's having a daughter until she comes here. So in China, it's kind of forbidden to give you the information of the baby's sex until later. It's because there's sexism. Female, babies sometimes, yeah, we all know that, right? So she does not know until she comes here. So there's that kind of sense too. She originally has planned to give the man a son. She is very much conditioned to think that kind of way, right? Privilege and male child. So yeah, I think the gender issue is also something I'm exploring in this book as well, in this story as well. And the story belongs to this collection of stories called How. It's one of the stories. It's all about Chinese women in China and also in America. And oftentimes the women, mother or mother to be, they're oftentimes put in extraordinary situations. I was interested in what when put in challenged, confronted in those kind of very difficult situations, what a woman is capable of doing.
Yes, I see, Stephanie. I just you just brought up Maxine Hong Kingston's the Woman Warrior with No Name Woman. And that was, if any of you have read that story, it's a story taken out of the book as a story by itself, but it's rather powerful. A woman giving birth in a similar kind of way, but in China, and what happens to her family and her daughter. If any of you have read that, it's a wonderful book too, in a way. But that reminded me of that scene when you mentioned that. Stephanie?
Yeah, I was just going to say this is a perfect story for this book because it makes you wonder what's next.
Yes.
So when that door, will she open the door? What happens then? And also from some knowledge that I have, the fact that she came to the United States and found out she was going to have a girl, will he want her to come back with that child? There is that. And I don't, probably not. So it seems that she would know that she would be needing to find a way to stay here, I would think, to raise the daughter, because if she goes back to China with the child, she doesn't know if she'll even get to keep it.
Hmm.
He might not want to pay to feed the child.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in front of her, but it feels like at the moment, the last moment. So yeah, yes, it ends with and it doesn't have this, you know, very complete ending, kind of everything's wrapped up, that kind of ending, but it does end with questions, but it also end with a sense of resolution, I think. A sense like from the woman. I feel like she feels stronger. Somehow there's a sense of empowerment there, even though it's probably not clear, not explicit, but she feels like she's able to do this, and this baby, somehow. Let me revisit the ending.
They're going on a voyage together.
Yeah, they're going on a voyage together. She holds her there, rocking lightly. Their voyage has just begun. So recognizing this is a new beginning. She's on her own. She is on her own, but it feels like she has grown through this experience.
As the man has too.
The man has too. Yeah.
I was wondering why you portrayed her as being so terrified she would be slit open and killed by the man, when her previous experience did not lend that interpretation.
Yeah, I think the man starts to become very creepy by us insisting on that question. So she intuitively sensed danger. And at this point, I'm not even sure what that man is like. You know, we don't know what the man is going to say. He seems mentally unstable, you know, to ask a question like that, right? So even knowing it's a derogatory thing, and then you're just pose such a question in this kind of blunt manner. So that's already suggest some kind of crossing boundary, right? So so the woman intuitively sense that, especially when you're having a baby, right? So it's, you know, I don't know, maybe that sense of danger is unwarranted, but at the same time, I feel like that could be a natural response to this situation. So yeah, so she has those kind of feelings and fears. Yeah, that's my thinking behind that.
I think there's something else too. He mentions that he seems to have been watching these other women too, which adds to his creepiness because he says, oh, and then there was this one and another one, and they all seem to be nieces of this person. And like, how does he know this? Has he been following them around and doing the same thing? It seems that he has been, for some reason, like he has some need to do that. Other people wouldn't normally do that.
I think they might. I mean, if you see a number, I mean, if I live in a condo, if I saw a number of people kind of serially coming through, I'd be curious.
True. That's true. Yeah, I think the curiosity is definitely clear. He probably knows what's going on, and but the need to confront her in that kind of blunt manner also suggests some kind of presumption that the woman is doing something criminal. And so there's a kind of self-righteousness in the man's question and entitlement as well. You know, so that's not how you interact with another human being, right? You know, because the question itself suggests a kind of accusation, right? So the woman senses it. And she feels that kind of danger. Yeah, I think Alice, question?
Yeah. Madeline.
Oh, Madeline.
Yeah, she's Alice.
Oh.
No, I was going to say, I got this impression This was a woman who was almost pleased to or accepted a very transactional relationship. She lists all of the things she was hoping to get from this man and that he provided. He was mature, he had money, he provided her with an apartment, with food, with certain things that the work world made far more difficult. So she was very transactional. Now, as this relationship is coming to the point, she wasn't expecting to get pregnant, but she did. So she knows it'll go on if she's providing him with a son. But if she's providing him with a woman, this is pretty much going to come to an end. That's the impression I got. The guy, on the other hand, you can see when you read that part about his memories with his own mother, I got this impression of a man who had tremendous difficulties dealing with, on a social level, on kind of a normal social level with women. So he's been watching all these people come and, these women come and go. They come pregnant. The woman shows up certain days, they have a baby, and then they leave. It's, it's kind of, so I don't see him as being creepy. I don't even see him as being creepy. He's creepy because of his own inability to know how to speak to people, perhaps, and deal with people. But he has a question, he wants an answer. It's kind of a transactional relationship. I don't necessarily think that his plan was to have her arrested for this. He has a suspicion. He wants the answer, confirmed. This is what's going on. This is what I see. You have a neighbor, they can't. All right, let's just say that in my neighborhood, we have a neighbor who has more relatives and friends staying in her house over the 50 years I'm living there than any human being I've ever known. All right, got the impression. But you can't rent a room. You can't have people from, that aren't relatives living with you for any length of time. I mean, I'm not going down the block to ask, but I do know people who have, at any rate. And, so she's not going to come out and say, actually, but some people are more curious. Some people just accept this as obvious. But I'm saying, so I don't necessarily think that he was that creepy. I think that it's just emotional. I mean, your hormones are literally, I mean, she's about to give birth. She's just thinking the worst of him, but it's not necessarily so. And yet I think there's a lot of growth in her because, as you said, your last sentence there, she's, she's going to go on this journey. She's not going to abandon this child. But she consistently says she's going back.
Yeah,
she remembers her own mother and her own relationship. So there's a whole history there. But
yeah, that's really a good observation. I think you're right about both reactions are very emotional. It's not rational, but emotional.
It is.
Both the man and woman are very emotional. I like that reading.
And he's changed too, because I think he truly wants to help her. I think he's desperate to help her.
Totally.
He can't break the door down because he could hurt her in the process of trying to do that.
Yeah. That's why I think he's that too. Yeah, he's not a bad man. It's just but it's just what I'm getting at is very different people. Sometimes they're just, if they approach each other with preconceived ideas about each other, then there wouldn't be this bridging of differences. But if you can, if people can react to each other or interact with each other on this, in this more kind of present, and I don't know, empathetic kind of manner, all the differences can really collapse. And in the story toward the end, I feel like that gap is somewhat bridged.
Yeah, I agree that a lot of it is transactional in the beginning. But as you're saying, Chun, it does change considerably as the story goes on. One thing, though, even though it's transactional toward the beginning, I have the impression that he is drawn to these pregnant women for some reason. And it's one thing to ask a question, you know, are you here to give birth and then go home? But it's another thing to actually help and continue in some even superficial way a relationship in the beginning. So to me, it seems like you've set up a situation where they can open up because he has helped her already. I don't know. I mean, that's the impression I get from it. But in this, I see something else in him that seems to be drawn to these women who are going to be mothers. And you bring this up as this goes on because, as we see very clearly, he had an issue with his own mother. And it seems to be a connection.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this something that you had planned, or is it just the way I'm seeing it?
I like that observation. I wasn't thinking he was drawn to the woman, definitely not in a romantic way, right?
No, I don't mean that. I just mean
curious.
Something in him is making him observe and be friendly in some way with these pregnant women.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, motherhood is lurking is going to happen soon.
Yeah.
So he's, as we see as the story goes on, gee, he had some issues with his own mother.
Definitely.
That he has to get out. You know, I in a way I related that to the title, because the title Anchor, I in my own mind I extended it to be the anchor, the psychological anchor that's holding him too, and holding her in a way to those beliefs, and then they break out of it.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that reading a lot. I didn't think of it consciously, but when you said it, it makes sense to me.
Does anyone else? Oh, Stephanie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the reader, I mean, I have written the whole ending. You know, I've got so many options. It gives you so many options for the ending of what happens when that door does open.
Yeah.
And how, you know, and a happy ending. I see them that he stays and helps her, and that she stays in this country, and that they have a relationship eventually. It's very lovely.
You're a romantic.
Yeah, romantic.
I don't know if he's really her type, but
yeah.
I think it becomes an issue of survival, of taking care of the child, because I think her income stream will be gone. And she might have to leave anyway, because whoever is running that apartment has other people coming in after her, probably.
Sure, after mom. Yeah, that's such an interesting reading. I was mostly thinking she would go back because legally she can only stay for 6 months. So this tourist reason, the tourist visa, most women who do this would hold a legally authorized tourist visa, and they can only stay in the country for 6 months.
But once their child is a citizen, can't they stay longer?
No, only the child has a citizen. Most people who do this will take their child back to China, and then when the child comes old enough to come to go to college, they will send their child here to go to college. When the child becomes 21, reaches 21, they have legally they can apply for their parents for the citizenship. But I think a lot of people do this with mostly thinking about their children's future, especially educational future. They want to send their kids to get an education in America. And at least I'm just talking about Chinese who do this. Oftentimes they have this financial means to do this. It's not cheap. It's expensive to do this. Yeah. So yeah, oftentimes they don't stay around. They just take their child back. So that itself is also a kind of, I think just this whole industry, right? It's a curious to me. The reason I wrote the story is because I wonder why would people take that much risk to do this. It's especially birth giving is such a oftentimes ceremonial thing, right? It's you want to be with your friend, your families. It should be a familial communal experience. Yes, some people are willing to risk all that, let go of all that and just come here in this strange foreign country, oftentimes alone with great uncertainties, and do this. So I'm curious. I don't know the right and wrong. I don't want to judge anyone, and I don't exactly know what their thinking process is. But through writing this story, I just want to explore this phenomenon of through individual characters and see what might have gone through in their mind, what their experience is like.
Yeah. That was what I walked away with in this story is there was such liminality in every single part of it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it was so interesting because you just start with there's a pregnant woman and she's living in this place and she's going to give birth. And so that's what is going to happen. And every single part of the story was like, it's not supposed to be this way, or it's not that this isn't the ideal in anything. And so it's like, she's not in her own country. She's not in her own apartment. The man that's with her is not the father. She's in a bathroom by herself. She's not in a hospital. It's just like all of these things, like this is not blah, blah, blah. And so that all of that reflects on the title and the point of it of, and the baby is not a boy and it is, not in China. And so it's all of these things that force the story to be so unstable. And so you're looking for stability through the whole time. It's like, where is she going to get it? And at the very end, I'm so glad that you ended it this way, just because it makes me feel better emotionally. But all of the vulnerability that she has is resolved when she holds her baby. And so she has to ask herself, like, who can I trust through the whole thing? Can she trust the man? Can she trust citizenship? Can she trust birth? It's like that she could have died. And at the end, when her baby comes out and she is asking now questions like, is her child angry? Is she fighting against her? Is she scared? All of these questions. And it was her hands that held the baby. And when she nursed and she's like, you can trust me. And that's how it ended. And I'm just like, oh, thank goodness. I just need a little bit. And that was it. And I was like, oh, okay. But it was just so much tension throughout absolutely everything. And at the end, it was, mom is it. And so that was, I just was grateful that there was something to look forward to, because sometimes you don't have to. I tend to kill all my characters, and because I just do. I can't imagine what they're going to do after that. So I'm like, well, you're going to die. And so with this, I'm just like, oh, you don't have to kill your characters. You can actually give your audience hope. And, and so those are choices that you make when you create these characters. And it was just such a tense story that I'm just like, I don't want to go to the bathroom anymore. Like that's so that was, it was really lovely. But also it's like, I think that she needed that hope. Like that was the strength for herself
Yes.
And I mean, that I have 5 children, and that was so different when I had a baby. I'm just like, I'm really not thinking about my past anymore. That is so gone. It's just so irrelevant because I have my child and we need to make sure that they are going to be okay. And what can I do for them as their mother emotionally? And so, yeah, that was none of the conversations before even mattered. It's like at the end, she isn't saying, and here is my anchor baby. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like
I'm
that's
even
she isn't
thinking
saying that.
about
It doesn't even, she's like, that is a term for you. And that feels like it's a you problem. And so I think that that is exactly why she went through all this risk. It's like, why would you go through risk for your child? Because, and it's the strength of love. So it
Yeah.
made sense. It made sense to me. So it was lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like that it is an empowering moment. Despite everything, she does feel there's a sense of empowerment, and that's how I see the woman change. she feel like very disempowered, throughout this story, but at the moment, at the end, she has a baby, and she's able to do it all by herself, and that is very empowering to her. Thank
right. Even just coming, as you said, the risk she took in coming here was the beginning of her empowerment. The fact that she made the choice to do it, because I think the father of the child asks her, why America? Why are you going there? But she made the choice to come here. So that seemed to be the beginning of her own decision making. And
That's true.
empowerment.
Yeah.
Did she, I mean, in the backstory, did she get the money to do this by way of him?
Yeah. So
Okay,
he's a
that's what I was-
provider. He provides all the money. And so in the story, the backstory is that she hopes he will divorce the wife and marries her. That doesn't happen. She hopes to give him a son. That doesn't happen. Then she hopes to go back and try again. So it's very passive kind of hope. But at this moment, I just feel with this happening, she's changed. She will be different. Her life, I think she will go back to China and bring the baby, at least for the moment. And I think her life will be different.
How will it be different? How do you see that?
I don't know. I feel like I imagine her not the old self anymore, would be completely dependent on a man, because this seems to be a time she recognized her self-worth and becoming more self-reliant. Yeah, that's at least that's my hope. But who knows? Once they're out of the story, they have their own life.
Right. But if she were a real person, and she's juggling this what's truth, what's the idea, what's the reality, all of this is going on throughout the story, and I think that's wonderful, because she's constantly learning that what she had thought about America, it's a big place, starts out with the tiny apartment that she thought was going to be luxurious, and it's not. So she's constantly changing her view. But when she goes back to China, would she be able to change like that? Would she go, being here and then going back, she probably would have a different view, slightly different view, because she'd been in a different place. And she learned something different.
True.
In other words, she's not going back as the same person.
Exactly. That's true. Yes. She's changed. When she goes back, there will be new challenges, definitely, for sure. But this is a milestone in her life.
Yes. Yes, she's raising a daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, Madeline?
Oh, I was going to say early on, she also, very early on, she makes the point that if the baby had been born in China, it would be a bastard. Bringing it back from America, it would not. You know, that
That's the
issue would
difference.
not be
Yeah.
one. So that's a big one. But she also makes early, well, that's not early, about mid-story, you have her comparing herself to her mother, wishing she could crawl back inside her own mother.
Yeah.
And I'll quote you. She misses her mother. She wants to go back inside her, shut her eyes and dream, even though her mother would be just like her, not knowing what to do. Her mother had never quite known what to do, wearing the look of a lost child that she wants never to wear herself. And at that end, when she is able to, and the baby immediately latches on, which if anyone's ever tried breastfeeding, it doesn't always happen. This kid. So, you know, that kind of thing suggests that she, in that instant, when it comes to needing to know, she knows. When she says that they're in the boat together, they're going to, you know, she's made that decision. Unlike her own mother, she is going to row her way to wherever she has to go. One last question, though. Who's ever going to cut the umbilical cord? There is no.
I know there are so many.
I just wondered about that one.
Well, even when I was writing it, I kept thinking, was that even possible? You know, giving birth.
I mean, yeah, there's somebody can cut it, but
I know.
I was
now I
wondering
don't
that
picture
too.
him. I don't picture her doing it. I hope they're going to call an ambulance eventually or a doctor. Someone.
Yeah. I mean, in the past, women did give birth to their
Right.
babies. They managed to do it. Yeah. Yeah, but that was such a good observation about her own mother. You know, just comparison in that kind of critical moment, moment of crisis. She wants to get to the safe place of getting into her mother's belly, but only to realize she has to be stronger than her own mother. You know, she just have to be the strongest self she ever knows. So, yeah, and she's able to do that.
Yes. I think Madeline brought up something that I've been wondering through the story, because you mention it in the story, and that is, what do these characters want? She's constantly asking, what does the man want?
Yeah.
What did the father of her child want? In other words, she makes assumptions about some of them. Well, actually, she makes assumptions about all of them, because she's going through this whole list. Does he want to attack? That is the man in the apartment. Does he want to attack me? Does he? What is it he wants? You know, she's assuming that people want things. I think this is part of the transactional issues that we were bringing up before. But at the end, she seems to know what she wants. She wants her child, and that bond with her.
That's so true. Yes.
Alice?
Yeah, typically, what would happen to a mother and her child if they do go back home? Is it that then the family that she left takes them in because she has absolutely nothing?
I wouldn't say so. In the past, yeah, there's definitely this sexism, the privilege of male child over female child. Nowadays, I'm sure that kind of prejudice still exists, but it's not as bad as in the past. So the man's probably not thrilled to have a girl, a daughter, but he will be taking them in because that's his child, right? So, but yeah, I think, you know, technically she will go back and live what she has always lived, getting provided by this man. But I still feel like through this experience, she's changed somehow. So she may not be happy with that arrangement, right? She may not be happy to be this dependent of this man. So I don't know. I really don't know. But I don't think she would completely change, even just pragmatically, she will still need the man's financial support for the child. The child still need to go to school in China, etc. Right? So, but I would say spiritually, and there's change in her, and maybe some kind of exterior changes would happen as well.
I'd like to change things a little bit and talk about your translations, because you're using language in the story, and in the beginning there's an issue of not communicating directly to each other, either non-verbally or verbally. They're picking up different ideas from each other. And I'm just wondering how your background as a translator, did that have anything to do with the way you're seeing the story? Or maybe you can just talk about your background as a translator and how that works with two very different languages.
Yeah, I came here, let's see. So even before I came here, I worked at a newspaper, an English newspaper, and I did have, part of my job was translating from English articles to Chinese articles. So I did that kind of translation even before I came here. Then I came here to study creative writing, and initially I was writing poetry. So I felt like it was very hard to make my English flow when I first came here, because it's still my second language. Even though I majored in English in college, I worked with English professionally for several years before I came here. But in terms of creative writing, it was very hard to just write directly in English. So I came up with this self-translation process. I would write my first draft in Chinese, translate it into English, translate back and forth between the two languages, and sort of as I translated, I also revised the work. So that was a good way to. It really worked for me. That strategy worked for me because it helped me to look at the drafts from a different perspective. It creates a distance, and so that when I look at it, I can look at it from a kind of fresh pair of eyes. But then when I was doing my PhD, I had to use the language so intensely in the English language, so intensively as well, extensively as well. So I just didn't really have time to do this kind of self-translation, and I find myself writing directly in English. So that had been going on for almost 10 years. English has become my dominant language. But I'll say this winter, I went back to China. My parents still live in China. I went back to visit them. I just felt this kind of desire to reconnect with the language, and I actually translated the story, some of the stories in the book, into Chinese. This story, Anchor Baby, is actually going to come out in a Chinese journal this summer. But it was a really good way for me to reconnect the language. So I still hope I can still write bilingually. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it is. That's an interesting process for you. And it sounds like an evolution from writing in both, or writing in Chinese first, then writing in English, and then writing in English, and then going back to writing in Chinese to some degree.
Mhm.
How is it translating other people's work?
I mostly translate poetry. I have 4 volumes of poetry, 2 from English to Chinese, 2 from Chinese to English. It's very good. I like the process. It's not hard. It's not easy, but it's a way for me to connect with both languages equally. When I translate, it feels like both language on equal footing rather than one's more dominant, the other subordinate. Yeah, so I do this from time to time.
I think it would be very difficult to translate poetry because you really have to have a solid grounding in, well, in the culture, in the background of the poet, in the way words are used in that culture. And you're not just translating the words, you're translating the culture also, the total culture.
Yeah, that's true. Even when you're translating prose, it's the same. You're translating the culture. And when I was translating my own work, I realized sometimes I have to leave the 2 versions different because some of the things work in English do not work in Chinese. It's a very interesting kind of, you know, yeah, you have to make departures. I think that's inevitable. You just have to make sure both versions, you know, both versions have integrity on their own. They don't have to be exactly the same because it's just impossible to create copies, you know, of pure equivalence. Yeah, departure, deviation from the original is inevitable in the translation.
As you were saying that, and you're saying that Anchor Baby is coming out in Chinese. Did you have to change anything?
See, this story, I didn't have to change much. So I was happy about that. You know, I actually felt, yeah, I didn't have to change much at all. This particular story. But I'm recently translating my novel, Straw Dogs of the Universe, which is about 19th century Chinese immigrants in California. I did have to change some of the stuff. It's like modifying, no, not big changes, but even some of the conversations when I was translating them into Chinese, I was wondering, do they really speak like that? Do Chinese people speak like that? So I have to ask those questions. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just wondering with some of the things, some of the points you make in Anchor Baby might seem to be a little bit sensitive in China. And I was just wondering.
Like which part? I'm curious. What do you think?
Well, the fact that she leaves China and says that she's coming here for a better life, that in itself would seem to be unusual if you like your country.
Yeah, but that's yeah, it was not censored. It's the same thing basically. And she's going to go back. So yeah, yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't change the story.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or anything? Ava?
Yeah. Okay. So, Chun, is there Chinese term for anchor baby?
Yeah, it's 定毛婴儿. I had to look it up when I was translating it. 定毛婴儿. Yeah, it's a literal translation.
Right, it's translation, but is there such a name in China? People would know in China that what is 地毛 baby? 地毛
Yes, they know.
Oh, they do.
Because there's just more and more people are doing this. Yeah. So they know this is happening. They know what it means. Well, maybe at least when they're reading the story, they know what it means. Yeah. They
Okay.
actually didn't ask me any of those questions, so I just assume they know. Yeah.
Okay. So, but back to the story, it's very interesting. Especially towards the end, I think they're totally two different. That you explained that you want to create this conflicts, and at the two end, the conflict characters, and there is, because the contrast of the feelings and the experience, the birth from this guy's experience and this woman's totally different. The guys is, the mother had the difficulty, the pain, and hated this procedure, and do, even want to die together. Whereas this woman give the birth to the child of her daughter, and she's relieved. And I mean, the situation, the condition, and the circumstances are kind of difficult in the bathroom by herself, and even make reader to hesitate to think whether this is the right decision for her to decide to come to the US and have the baby born here, knowing eventually ended up in that kind of lonely, difficult condition. Probably she's well taken care of if she goes through this process in China, because for Chinese culture, pregnant woman give a birth of baby, they're well taken care of. They don't touch floor like a month later, you know, they eat well, fed well, and all that. But here she's doing all that herself. So there's such a contrast on the experience of birth. One is love, another is hatred, maybe a pain.
Yeah.
All the pain. Okay, one question I like to ask is, because that's the Anchor Baby is a title, and also you started the story by this man, a stranger, totally a stranger, ask that question. Why this guy, what made him to ask that question, Anchor Baby? Has he already seen a lot of Chinese women come to give birth in this country? And therefore he just assumed this is another one and asked that question. Why in the world that he just asked another stranger, is there your baby, Anchor Baby?
Yeah, I think it was in the public discourse. This term has been very controversial. People are talking about, is it derogatory or is it just a objective term? So there's a lot of debate, dialogue in the public conversation. So he and also there's this kind of correlation, very misguided, very false narrative that immigrants or undocumented immigrants are more prone to criminal acts, right? So there's that kind of correlation already in the public space, and the man possibly subscribes to some of that notion. If you look like an undocumented immigrant, perhaps you're doing something illegal. So yeah, I think the question he poses to this woman, of course, yeah, we can also think of it as out of curiosity, but when he puts it in that kind of blunt manner, there is a sense of self-righteousness. There is a sense of assumption. So yes, that's kind of. I don't want to, beat around the bushes. Just make it happen. So the woman's put on the spot until the crisis happen, and then I want the tension to happen right away, because when it happens, there is really no circumventing it. They really just have to face it, confront it, and see how it unfolds. So that's kind of my consideration there. And the other question you mentioned about the contrast of having a birth here completely alone, unprotected, even feeling like your life is being threatened, right? Versus you can just have, birth there. Maybe you can, get help from your family, your, friends, etc. That's something the woman has to reckon with, and she does seem to have regret. But then sometimes you make a decision, you have to live with it, right? And that kind of decision making, again, is oftentimes socially conditioned. Sometimes we think we have free will to make choices, right? But oftentimes our choices are very much conditioned by the world around us, right? So I think that's all part of the story as well.
I think when she mentions that the woman who brought her, Mrs. Young,
Yeah.
that she's going to be with her for a month. Would that be kind of a substitute for what Ava is saying?
That's what they do.
Month
Yeah.
after?
Yeah, they call it 坐月子. Oftentimes in China, you would have like your mother-in-law help you to do that. Basically, take care of you for a month when your body is still pretty weak condition, and help take care of the kid. And also, more and more people hire people to do that as well in China. So the arrangement, part of the arrangement is to have this lady take care of her for a month. That's what she pays as well, right? Not just the medical expense, but her service. So that's probably going to happen, but it's just this whole situation having to have a birth in the bathroom. It's nobody would expect that to happen, right? It's like a horror story.
Seem to be.
Yeah.
Any other comments? It's kind of it is a horror story. Anyone else want to comment on this story or anything? It's very quiet. Stephanie?
Yeah, it seems back to him. He's not exactly the casual person there, because he's been involved with her prior to this. He's helped her with her groceries. He's told her about the key being in the door, etc. And he's seen, and he's made it clear that he is asking Anchor Baby because he's seen other women come and go with children. So it's a naturally curious thing for him to ask, in terms of trying to engage her to have a conversation of some sort, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And which again,
now I remember, right? He reminds her keys on the lock, and okay, right.
And he's trying to engage with her in a sense. Maybe he hasn't with the other women to have a conversation. I think it points out to his loneliness as well, to trying to have some kind of connection with her. And her fear, which is understandable, but you do wonder what happens once that door opens. You have to write another story.
Yeah, I wanted to make this character complex. I certainly do not want those kind of just one layer kind of character, one-dimensional character who's just, I don't want to demonize anyone. I felt it was very important to give this person's perspective, the man's perspective. Initially I had written a lot more about this man. I just really wanted to understand his backstory, why he would act this way, but a lot of them got cut. So what's left, I hope, is suggestive enough about the complexity of this character. He can be a decent person, but he is also very emotional, lonely, like you said, and he wants connection. But maybe goes about it not in the best way at the beginning, but eventually there is a kind of connection that's formed.
He's very conflicted about his own mother, as I said before, so that
Yeah.
seems to be part of his need for connection.
Yeah.
Very much so, which comes out when she's going through these very basic screams and childbirth. That can't be more human than that. And he's responding to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Those are such a great questions and comments. I feel like I've learned more about the story.
No, well, so have we.
Yeah.
I think I've learned a lot about it too, and about what you do, which sounds very interesting. So I very much appreciate that you came today to meet with us. It's been very, very much of a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
all.
much.
So much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And for
Thank you.
everyone else, it's been a whole year of pleasure to
Yes.
meet with all of you. So we might in a couple of months have one more, but I'll keep in touch and let you know.
Which one? If we do have one more, Sharyn, which one?
Mingxin,
Oh, okay.
and she's not able to do it. So Kirsten Lundstrom, Kirsten Sundberg Lundstrom would be the person who would cover for her. And Kirsten herself is a prize-winning short story writer, and she has a new novel coming out. So it's a very interesting series as you see, Joe.
Oh, okay. It's not what's the next. It's not what's next. It's totally different, right?
Pardon me?
We finished what's next. We finished this one.
No, it's a story that we would go back to.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Well,
Let's see. It's where is she? In the event.
Oh, mentioning. Okay.
But I'll have to let you know if that schedule is going to, if Kirsten is going to be on the schedule.
And Chun, do you happen to know her? Menjing must be another Chinese.
I don't know. Sharyn, actually, I'm curious. How did you find the story Anchor Baby? I don't think it was published in any journals.
Yes, it was. That's how I found it.
Which journal?
I'd have to look at.
I don't even remember. Okay.
Let's see.
Anyway.
It's in the acknowledgements, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Michigan Quarterly Review.
Okay, yes, I forgot about it.
You forgot.
Well, thank you for including in this great anthology.
Yes, I thought it was a very good addition to the story. And your name just happened to be the last one. So
Okay.
I'm glad that it was, because it's leaving open the question of what's next for the character, as well as what's next for this country in a way. Tom. So it's just, I think it works really well. And I'm glad that you also talked about translation, because I think that's important too, for us to know how to do that in this environment. We have so many languages in this country, and it's good to know how translation can work. Does anyone else want to say something as we close up?
I was just curious, was it Mandarin or Cantonese? What is the?
I was wondering
yeah,
too.
Mandarin, but my parents live in Guangdong. A lot of people speak Cantonese, but I grew up in the north. So I didn't learn Cantonese. I can understand Cantonese though.
Oh,
Well, thank you
okay.
so much, everyone. It was
Yes.
such a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sharyn, for this
you.
collection, this What's Next.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're all gonna do now. What's next,
I
friends?
don't know either. What's next for us? We have to do something else.
For certain.
Yeah.
Definitely, I want this group to continue, and Sharon, you will find something else for us to share.
And bring everyone back.
I thoroughly enjoy it.
Is there
Yes,
going to be
I-
another What's Next, Sharon?
Another what's next number 2. That would be
Yeah.
that would be like a continuation of the answer to what's next. I don't know. Actually, I think as things are going on here and in the world in general, there are even more questions to ask about what's next. I think things are getting a lot more complicated as we see every day in the news. So it's I'd have to figure out how to start with another what's next. That would be interesting. But maybe we could do it as just instead of as a book, maybe as a series. We'll see.
Great.
Well, thank you all. I'll miss you all.
It's you. It's been-
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
But okay.
Thank
Bye
you, Sharon, for doing this. It's just been great, and it's been a wonderful program. Will we be able to see it again on video or what?
Talk to Tamarah.
I have the playlist that I'm editing, and so I will be getting the recording for this, and then I have all of the videos beautifully edited, and so that will be available
On
soon.
YouTube? Will
On
it be
YouTube.
Wonderful.
Yes. Actually, I think even if you don't have the link, you can just look up. It's just what's next.
It's just what's
And-
next. I tried to make it
Right, on
in the
YouTube.
title.
And there's kind of a listing of all the ones that Tamarah has done so far.
Great. Congratulations to you too. That's quite an achievement.
It is. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
Mhm.
So, okay, I have to go. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, we have to
but
go.
thank you
All
so much.
right,
Bye,
Stephanie.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, ciao.
Everybody.
Take care, everybody. Stay healthy. I have just one thing to share with you. I did hear from Meredith. May I read this to you?
Yes.
Okay, she says, oops. She says that she's in New York City and she's thinking of you, Sharon, after seeing the marvelous Harlem Renaissance exhibition with Langston Hughes featured as one of the, quote, the thinker as the movement got started. And she's also just emerged from 5 days in isolation after contracting the new COVID variant KP5. And but she's masked up for 5 more days, but at least she's out of lockdown in the bedroom. And she says, hope all's well, best to you and Chuck and Sharon.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to hear that she got COVID on her trip. Yeah,
This is the second
that's really.
time. Because when they went on the cruise, she got it too.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Years.
we all know who these people are. So yeah, that's pretty sad. But I'm glad that she saw that exhibit. I heard that another person I heard had gone there and it was really good.
Really?
Yeah. And Langston Hughes was one of the early thinkers. I wouldn't say that he continued on as a thinker. I think there might be some dispute about that, but he was one of the early thinkers in that he wrote an essay that really set off some of the Harlem Renaissance. The what is it? The Negro Artist in the Racial Mountain. Is that what it is, Chuck? Do you remember that one?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which was kind of a document that set forth what it's kind of a defining document for the early Harlem Renaissance. Now, after that, he started writing newspaper articles and other things. So he wasn't that much of a thinker, but in the beginning, he really was. And he was part of that journal. Is it the Crisis? Not the Crisis. I can't remember the one that published a lot of those people.
Mhm.
Jesse Fawcett was the editor. It was from the, Chuck, help me out. It was from the
Well,
NAC.
I want to say Blackfire, but that's Baraka.
No, that was
But
decades later.
yeah, Blackfire is actually a play on the one you're thinking of. Oh, I think it was called Fire. It was just called Fire.
It might have been. It might have
It
been.
was to burn up a lot of old stereotypes.
Yeah,
That's
that
why
was
it's
the
called
idea.
Fire.
I want to just say I'm glad to see Tom.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. Really glad to see you.
Excuse me?
And
What'd you say?
I said I'm really glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Years.
A long time.
Years.
Yes, and
Oh.
I'm glad that you had a good time in France.
It was
Loved it.
wonderful, but I'm gonna have to cut you short. And our friends that moved to Michigan, they just pulled up the driveway.
Oh, gosh. Well, I was in Ann
Thank
Arbor.
you. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Good seeing you,
Bye.
Sharon.
Bye.
you.
Are you gonna stay on, Chuck and Sharon, for a second?
I'm getting ready to leave. Thank you all.
You're
I'll call
getting
you,
ready to
Sharon.
leave.
Okay, take
Oh,
care, everybody.
why did you want to
I
say
was just
something?
gonna tell you, why couldn't we do Dancing with Langston as another one?
We could.
I think,
And maybe Middle Passage.
right, that's exactly what I was thinking. That we're right on the same wavelength, you and I. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Except that Oxherding Tale is the one that got on the list of best books.
Right.
It
But
really is better than Middle Passage.
you think so?
Yes. Middle Passage is more of a popular type book. Not real. I mean, he doesn't write pop books, but I mean, in terms of accessibility, it's a little bit more popular. But there's,
yeah.
but Oxherding Tale is the one that was on, what was it, the Atlantic's list?
Yeah,
I
but he
can't-
won the award for Middle Passage, not for Oxford.
I know winning awards is a whole
Oh, I know.
industry in itself. but all I'm saying is the quality of the book is just,
We could do
But-
both.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see what the club is going to do. Or is this really not the club's thing?
This is the club's thing.
It is?
Yes, a program has to be presented and it's, like that. Then they plug it in. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when you look at YouTube, you'll see that it starts out it's got an intro with the Rainier Club.
In your club? Well,
I
that
can't
makes-
remember exactly how it goes, but you see the club and it's,
Yeah. Well, that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
because this whole recording, as we're recording now, I hope
my
that
God, are we
Tam-
recording now? Oh dear.
yeah, because it comes on immediately when I come on.
Oh, so this is being recorded. Eek.
Yeah, but it's okay because Tamarah, I'm sure, will cut it, and I'm
Good.
saying that so that she will cut it.
Yes, Tamarah, please cut it. But- okay, well, listen, I'll call you so we won't be recorded. Okay? I'll call
Okay,
you.
all right, I'll end this.
Bye-bye.